Kelly File segment tonight. Two very hot topics. A call for the UN to investigate U.S. voting laws. What? But first, the Arizona Senate approves a measure requiring a drug test for anyone applying for unemployment benefits in that state. And now, attorney and Fox News anchor Megyn Kelly. All right, so tell me about Arizona. What do they want?
So they want to test unemployment recipients for drug use, but they only want to test those whom they have a reasonable suspicion about. If they have reasonable cause to believe you might be on drugs,
so
maybe
if you
got
walk
arrested,
in and fall down,
you know, you smell like the Mary Jane when you walk into the office. No,
Mary Jane, what's that?
Try to keep up, Bill.
I can't.
You call me little Bo Peep. You're little Bo Peep.
I know what Mary Jane is.
In any event, so they don't want those people to get unemployment benefits for a year if they fail a drug test or if there's other reasonable cause to believe that they're on drugs.
So, but isn't it very subjective that somebody would say, well, step over here and urinate into a cup because you're wobbling down the road? I mean, arrest, I could understand.
Well, that all goes to what's
a drug
reasonable.
Arrest, I could understand.
That's where the litigation will come up. What is reasonable?
Right.
And is it arbitrarily applied when, you know, the person making the decision sees one person versus another?
Does the law have any standards for state workers to ask? Are there a list of things that they have to comply with?
I don't think so.
So then it can't stand.
But that's how the Fourth Amendment works. You know, reasonable suspicion is what you need to do a warrantless search. So it's always up to in the eye of the beholder, and then it gets checked by a court or another person.
But in the Fourth Amendment, you have trained police agents, okay, making the decision. Here you have some clerk sitting behind, you know, a desk.
Not necessarily, because we don't know how the law is going, how the state is going to enforce this. If they just go by an arrest, if you've had a drug arrest and you're facing charges,
but you can't
automatically there's reasonable suspicion.
How can Arizona pass a law if they don't know how it's going to be enforced?
Well, I'm saying, listen, just because I don't know doesn't mean they don't know.
See, in theory, I'm with them. I think there's a lot of fraud and welfare all over the place, and there are a lot of drug-addicted and alcoholic people getting money and spending it on drugs and alcohol. The kids never see it. So in theory, I like it. I want people to be held accountable, but this law has got to be specific about what you can and can't do.
Well, you can't be on drugs and use the money for that you get.
But then they have to find a way to make sure
they can't make it more specific than reasonable suspicion or reasonable cause, Bill, because then they're going to include a whole bunch of things that they shouldn't include and exclude a bunch of things they shouldn't exclude.
Would you vote for this law if you were in Arizona?
I mean, my own personal view is I don't like these laws because I do think that in the end you could hurt families.
How do you
they try to provide for the children. They try to provide for the children. But here's my point. But let me finish my point. Let me finish my point. The studies show that those who are receiving welfare benefits or unemployment benefits are no more likely and actually may be less likely than the general population to be on drugs. So I do think it may be targeting unfairly a group.
What study is that?
There's a few of them. There's several. We went through all of this when Florida tried to pass its law banning welfare recipients from getting their payments if they were on drugs. Now, that applied to any applicant.
Did that
for
pass in Florida?
No, it just got struck. It passed, but it just got struck down.
Yeah.
Now, it's still under review. But I think that they're unfairly assuming that people who apply for unemployment benefits or welfare benefits have a higher propensity for drug use. And
but
the studies don't
question.
support that.
If you were in the Senate in Arizona, would you vote for this law?
I'm not going to answer that.
Okay. The NAACP is complaining to the United Nations, that U.S. voting laws are somehow unfair.
Yeah.
Why?
So now the UN Human Rights Council, they say that they want to shame us. The NAACP says they want to shame us. That's what they're doing this for, because they think that these laws will disenfranchise minority voters.
What laws?
And these voter ID laws. They don't like the voter ID laws.
Voter ID laws.
Yes.
Okay.
And so they want to shame the United States in front of this UN world body, the Human Rights Commission.
And Libya's on there, right? Libya's on
there. And so other members on this commission include China, where there are forced abortions, millions of babies. Saudi Arabia, where women don't even get to vote. Women cannot vote in Saudi Arabia.
We have beheadings.
But Saudi Arabia is going to decide whether our voting laws are appropriate or not. Uganda. Do I need to mention Coney? Right? Do I need to mention Coney? I mean, the list goes on and on.
Coney's not in Uganda, but they have a big problem with gays in Uganda, where they have all kinds of laws against them.
I mean, the list of countries that will now pass judgment on the United States and our voter ID law to decide whether we are just or not just.
Don't you think that the NAACP knows there'll be backlash against them for doing this? And it doesn't mean anything anyway.
Listen, historically, they did this. They did this back in the late 1940s. The NAACP went to that same world body, the Human Rights Commission of the UN, and talked about the discrimination against minorities here in the United States. And they were right. They had an issue back then that was legitimate.
Right.
This may or may not be legitimate, but given the scope of what is going on at those countries, you know, that they are now appealing to China and the forced abortions, and that's what they should be paying attention to, as opposed to our photo ID laws.
These ACLU types and far left people really don't want anybody showing ID at the poll. They don't want it.
No, they don't.
They don't want it. I wonder why. Megyn Kelly, everybody, there she is.